Migrants have arrived in New York, and now a dire warning from Democratic Mayor Eric Adams.
We're getting no support on this national crisis. I don't see an ending to this. I don't see an ending to this. This issue will destroy New York City. Destroy New York City.
And how interesting that today, of all days, Mayor Eric Adams, the Democrat mayor of New York, has said illegal immigration and migrants coming to New York, in the numbers they are, will, and I quote, destroy New York. Wow. So that's even being said on the other side of the pond.
So we've seen them come full circle. But I'm not going to let you forget how we got here. So, you remember when Trump was president and Trump was saying, hey, we don't want immigration to become a crisis, so we have to keep the border secure. And he was called racist for that. A lot of people don't remember that. A lot of people, you say that, people are like, no, I don't remember that. Let me show you the clip. Here's a clip of AOC calling Trump a racist over his immigration policy.
In my primary.
Do you believe President Trump is a racist?
Yeah, no question.
How can you say that?
When you look at the words that he uses, which are historic dog whistles of white supremacy, when you look at how he reacted to the Charlottesville incident where neo-Nazis murdered a woman versus how he manufactures crises like immigrants seeking legal refuge on our borders, it's night and day.
So you see? Migrants coming to our country, he's racist because you see how he treats them, right? It's not a crisis, it's that he's a racist. And for those of you who thought Bernie Sanders was any better about it, here's Bernie Sanders essentially calling Trump's policies of closing the border racist. Check this out.
Sanders, as a proud son of immigrants and as a higher education professional working with DACA and undocumented scholars, immigration is the most important issue for me in this presidential election. How highly do you prioritize immigration and a pathway for citizenship for the millions that are waiting here in the United States?
Vincent, thank you very much for that important question. It is very much at the top of our list. And let me tell you what we're going to do. For a start, Vincent, I don't know if you know this, I am the son of an immigrant. All right, my dad came to this country at the age of 17 without a nickel in his pocket, couldn't speak a word of English, had very limited education. He came to this country to escape terrible poverty and anti-Semitism. So I have a little bit of a sense of the immigrant experience. So here's my promise to you. Day one, we will rescind all of Trump's hateful and racist immigration executive orders.
So you see, they cheered. We need them here. They're racist. It was the calling card of left-wing politics when Trump was in office. To just call him a racist. His immigration is a clear example. Now, this racist immigration stuff was such a great talking point. Here's Joe Biden running on that same point. Check it out.
No president has ever done this. Never, never, never. No Republican president has done this. No Democratic president. We have racists, and they've existed. They've tried to get elected president. He's the first one that has.
You see? So the Democrats have been, anytime you talk about immigration reform, immigration policy, the need to stop millions of people from crossing the border, you're a racist. Trump was racist. If you backed him, you're racist. We're all racist, right? It was not about the policy. It was about the fact that you were racist. So the good people in New York, where AOC is from, and the Northeast and all these liberal cities, that was their calling card. That was their identity politics, the way to make it work, right? But the good people in Texas and Arizona who were dealing with these floods of immigrants coming over the border said, well, if you guys just want to call us racist because we don't have the money to take care of all these migrants coming across the border, then we'll send them to you. We'll send them to you. Here's a quick news report about that.
Migrants from Central America congregated near Manhattan's main bus terminal after arriving from Texas. The state's Republican governor, Greg Abbott, on Friday said he had started to send buses carrying migrants to New York City in an effort to push responsibility for border crossers to Democratic mayors. despite being on the road for 30-plus hours. On top of an already long journey, some told Reuters they were glad to be in New York.
Colombia, Panama, Costa Rica, Nicaragua.
We arrived today from Texas, crossing Venezuela, Colombia, Panama, Costa Rica, Nicaragua, Honduras, Guatemala, Mexico, and Texas. After 3 days in Texas, we were brought here. It's better in New York. There are more work opportunities. We've arrived. It's taken 31 days to get here on foot and asking for rides.
The arrival here has been very beautiful.
Volunteers on Friday helped migrants get to a nearby intake center so they could be processed for admission to homeless shelters.
It's a big city. They don't know anybody. Most of them don't have anybody to help. They don't know where to go, so we're taking them to shelters.
Abbott has sent more than 6,000 migrants to Washington, D.C. since April in a broader effort to combat illegal immigration and to put the onus on President Joe Biden for his more welcoming policies. In a Friday statement, Abbott called on New York City Mayor Eric Adams to find housing for the new arrivals, saying, quote, "I hope he follows through on his promise of welcoming all migrants with open arms so that our overrun and overwhelmed border towns can find relief."
Now, you would hear that quote and think, the mayor of New York couldn't have said that. That's exactly what he said. And that's what started this whole thing. So let me play you that clip of the mayor of New York talking about welcoming migrants with open arms.
Many of the resources that we need to find ways to address, but we don't have people in our shelters who are not being fed, who are not spending days on the floor sleeping with children. That is not who we are. That is not who we're going to be as a city. And we're asking all to be a part of this initiative. Our faith-based institutions, our legal advisors, those who want to volunteer. We were just here with Norman Siegel the other day. We are all in this together to deal with this influx of innocent people who are seeking asylums or fleeing wars, who are fleeing crises in their own country. New York is one of the few states where you have right to shelter. One of the few. We're not like those who are sending people away during their time of needs. We are representative of what this country stands for. And we will always continue. 5 families or 4 families that did not receive services within the time frame that the law calls for is 4 families too many. But those over 3,000 individuals that we were able to provide services for, I want to say a job well done for those families that we provided services for, and we're going to continue to provide services as they transition into normalizing their lives and not having to live within the shelter system. And so that is the reason we wanted to be clear today to call this press conference. This press conference was called because we wanted to push back on that narrative that any entity is stating that this administration is not doing its job. And so job well done, Commissioner Jenkins, job well done, Commissioner Castro, and the Deputy Mayor and our entire team as we deal with this unprecedented, historical level of children and families that we're going to have to provide services for.
So they're ready to go. Bring them all in. We got their back. We got services. We're going to do this. You know, you have a right to shelter state. In New York, you got a right to a place, right? You have a right to shelter. New York is unique in that way. Not like those places that they're coming from. This is New York. So now what you just heard was at the start of everything when they sent about 3,000. So now, guess what? There's more coming. And Mayor Adams, he's doubling down. Bring them on. Here it is.
Mayor of the City of New York, I don't, weigh into immigration issues, border issues. I have to provide services for families that are here, and that's what we're going to do. And that's what our responsibility as a city. I'm proud that this is a right to shelter state, and we're going to continue to do that.
Proud to be a right to shelter state. We're going to continue to take care of people. Bring them in. Bring them in. Right? It sounds all good. It sounds all good. But things quickly turned bad because when it was 3,000, it's okay. But now you're at 10, 15,000. That's starting to get pretty horrific. So Mayor Adams has now, in this video, called a state of emergency in New York. And this is what he says now. This is what's going on.
Certain land use requirements to expedite this process. New York City has already done more than nearly any other city to support this influx of asylum seekers. And we cannot deprive longtime New Yorkers of support and services, even as we address the needs of these new arrivals. It's not sustainable, and it is not right. If our city had had coordination or even just cooperation from any of the states sending buses or more support from our partners, then maybe we could have budgeted, staffed, and allocated resources for these asylum seekers. But we didn't get the support and information we asked for. And now, New York City is being forced to bear far more than its share of this national crisis caused by political motivation. Mayors are already on the front lines of every other crisis this country is suffering from gun violence to climate change. But local government cannot be the solution for national crises, especially manufactured crises. We now have a situation where more people are arriving in New York City than we can immediately accommodate, including families with babies and young children. Once the asylum seekers from today's buses are provided shelter, we will surpass the highest number of people in recorded history in our city's shelter system.
He sounds like a racist. He sounds like a Trump-loving racist. That's what he sounds like, right? This is crazy. He's a Trump-loving racist. It's a crisis all of a sudden. Not long ago, it's open arms. Not long ago, Trump is an obvious racist for saying this is a crisis, so we need to avert this crisis, right? Now it's a problem. So now the problem has gotten even worse because that was almost a year ago. The problem's gotten even worse. So now Democrats are blaming each other. Here's a news report about the Democrats blaming each other for the migrant crisis.
And a war of words is erupting between New York Governor Hochul and New York City Mayor Adams. The rift between the two typically tight political allies is a significant revelation. Today, Mayor Adams unleashed his harshest criticism of the governor, claiming her lack of leadership, what he claims is her lack of leadership, is hurting the city. Tonight, the governor's office is firing back. Here's Eyewitness News reporter Stefan Kemp.
I think the governor's wrong.
Mayor Adams came out swinging today in mid-season form, and that was just round one.
I am just really baffled around that very smart people believe that this is sustainable for New York City.
His first comments at a fireside chat at the New York Law School about Governor Hochul refusing to force other counties to take in asylum seekers. Then later at City Hall, the cracks in their partnership apparently deepening. The Department of Homeland Security yesterday offered 11 federal sites, many outside the city, to potentially house migrants. This was Governor Hochul last week on housing migrants upstate.
The city of New York and a coalition for the homeless signed an agreement that the city would provide shelter to anyone who seeks it. This is an agreement that does not apply to the state's other 57 counties, which is one of the reasons we cannot and will not force other parts of our state to shelter migrants.
If the national leaders are saying we're not going to stop the flow, that's a failed plan. And if the state leaders are saying it must stay in New York City, that's a failed plan.
When asked if he would go against the governor and send migrants upstate, the mayor made his intentions crystal clear.
If I get permission from the federal government, we're going to use that. We are going to use any space that's available to take the pressure off of New York City residents.
A spokesperson for the governor says, quote, "It is unfortunate the mayor is pointing the finger at the state, which continues to provide the city with unprecedented amounts of financial support rather than working collaboratively to manage this crisis."
Now it's everybody else's fault. It's the mayor's fault. It's the governor's fault. It's everybody's fault. Governor says keep them in New York. We're not going to send them anywhere else. What are you talking about? You send them all here? There's a whole state that we can send them to. Things have gotten worse, people. So, obviously, that led now, it's at the breaking point. Any migrants that come to New York can't be sent anywhere else. They got to stay in New York. And it's just boiling over and boiling over and boiling over until now. This is what's essentially what's going on right now. This is where we're at right now.
The children of migrant families shipped north on buses provided by Texas and Florida. More than 110,000 migrants have arrived in New York, and now a dire warning from Democratic Mayor Eric Adams.
We're getting no support on this national crisis. I don't see an ending to this. I don't see an ending to this. This issue will destroy New York City. Destroy New York City.
An already overtaxed school system is racing to find more desks and more teachers, and the city is struggling to house migrant families, trying to make space in hotels by moving single adults into a new tent shelter. Today, New York's Democratic governor appealing directly to the White House.
We have to focus not on the politics of this, but focus on doing what's right. And the answer falls with Washington.
A similar plea is coming from other cities, including Los Angeles and Chicago, where migrants have been sleeping on police station floors. Back here in New York, the mayor says the cost is too much to bear.
Every community in this city is going to be impacted. Every service in this city is going to be impacted. All of us.
The White House insists tonight it is providing money and working to do more. Administration officials talked today with the governor of New York and called that conversation constructive. But, David, ultimately, the White House says only Congress can reform our broken immigration system. And there's no sign, David, that's happening.
So, I wonder what's going to happen. Number one, I'm glad I left New York because it's a shit show now. But I wonder what's going to happen. They literally asked for this. Like, part of me is like, damn, this is sad. But then the other half of me is saying, but you know what? Good for them. They asked for this. They called anybody who said, you know what? Hey, so this doesn't get out of control, because no matter what you say about Trump, how you feel about Trump, let's just keep it 100, right? Trump's policy was we can't have millions of people crossing the border because we can't take care of them. We don't have the money for that. Let's stop them at the border and we'll try to figure it out from there. He was called a racist, right? Republicans who also thought that was a good idea. The governors in those states, they were racist too. So all of them are racist. So then eventually we get a Democrat in there. And guess what the Democrat says? Bring them all in, right? Flood them, bring them all in. Open border, we don't care. So you know what? The good people in Texas said, okay, you can send them to the Democratic cities, since that's where, they have the right to shelter up there. And now it's those same people in those Democratic cities talking about close the border. Immigration policy. We need this thing to close. So have the Democrats become the racist? That would just make sense, right? It was racist for Trump to do it, and now they're advocating to do the same thing. That would essentially make them the racist. And this is the thing about identity politics. It's like that song.
It's cool when they do it. It's a problem when I do it.
So it was cool when they did it, right? It's a problem when I do it. And that I think is the ultimate thing, the ultimate hypocrisy. These left-wing policies have failed. And now I'm kind of happy that they got to live with them and they got to deal with this, because this was a totally avoidable problem. But when you play politics with people's lives, now you see this consequence to that. Let me know where I'm wrong in the comment section. My name is Nate the Lawyer, and I'm going to see you next time.